Hello, and welcome to Street Aesthete. This is the show where we explore street view coverage of a noteworthy location, looking out for beautiful architecture and stunning scenery, while I amuse myself by remarking on what we see. You rejoin me in the Portuguese city of Coimbra. Now, I've got a particular route in mind through the city, and I realised that a building that I did particularly want to share with you was not going to be on that route, so we're going to start off there and then jump back to the intended route. So we're over here on the north side of the town, looking at the Mango Garden, and it's this very exciting little building here, this unusual construction that I wanted to draw your attention to. Something of a stylised gazebo or bandstand in the little square here, and what's interesting about it is that it certainly takes its cues from the classical, with this rotunda and the columns around it, but then it also has something of a sort of fantasized Orientalism about it, with these domes and unusual turrets on either side. This being the Mango Garden, perhaps inspired by flavours of the East. And behind it, we can see some of the buildings further up the hill. And if you're brave enough, there are some very steep staircases to take you up there from here. And I'll just give you a glimpse of some of the rest of the street here. And a very lovely Renaissance style fountain over here. Now we'll pop back out into the map. So we were just here looking at the Mango Garden, and you may recall that the square that we saw in the first episode is just over on the other side with the fantastic monastery here. Now, over at the south side of the city, we'll be going to look at the university up here, but I just want to draw your attention also to the botanical garden, some of which is set on the side of the hill here, and unfortunately there's not very much coverage along this path, but what I suggest you do is walk along the river and then take this hairpin bend set of lanes through the wooded hill, and there are a few spots that you definitely need to take a look at, such as this bamboo-lined avenue, providing some shade from the hot sun, and this I really like. This very much reminds me of something you might see in Brazil. The Portuguese colonial architecture. It's basically just a little sort of storage shed of some kind, but I love the way that it's just become encrusted with moss, feeling like a lost relic that you might stumble across in the rainforest. And then elsewhere in the Botanic Garden, you can see scenes like this. And just take a look at that fabulous huge tree there. And so this wilder part of the gardens on the hill really has this fantastic sense of enclosure. You really feel like you're away from the city, surrounded by fantastic plant life, in a cosy little botanist's wonderland. So I can't recommend enough that if you do visit Coimbra, you walk up some of these paths and explore the Botanic Garden. But what I want to do now is I'm going to take you back to the very first square that we looked at the beginning of our first episode of the exploration of Coimbra, and I'm going to take you on a route up the side of the hill here to the university, which we're going to take a closer look at. And from here you can start to get a great view of the river and the settlement on the other side. Some lovely, colourful facades here, but I'm not going to take you too much further down this route. Just wanted to give you a glimpse of that street here. We actually want to be up on this higher path here, so we'll see if we can navigate over there. And I won't be taking you down all of the alleys on the hill, but as you can see, they're very much worth exploring. There is plenty of distinguished architecture to see. Such an exciting place to explore. And it's pretty narrow up here. I wouldn't suggest taking a car up if you can avoid it. Some wonderful old stonework here. I wonder how old this wall might be. This was originally a Roman settlement, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but this certainly looks like an old enough piece of construction that it could perhaps be Roman. And now that we reach the top of the hill, we start to come to the university. Now there are a lot of newer buildings around here, not all of which are the most attractive, but we're going to go to the original old University Square, which we can start to glimpse in the sunlight through this archway here. And we'll see if we can get through. Now, we will be finding some coverage without the scaffold, but just to give you a sense of where we're coming out to. When I visited in 2024, last year, there was some restoration work going on. So if you visit now, it's probably even more beautiful. And the thing that really stands out to me is the tile work on the roofs here. These parallel diagonal lines done in different coloured tiles. You don't really get the full effect of it in this coverage, the brightness of the colours. And here we have another view. I think perhaps from... yes, we've got some drone photography here. And this is going to be a great way of getting to see the tiled roof. And here you can really see the saturation of the colours. And they may well be continuing to restore the rooftop here. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. Just an absolutely gorgeous city. So many tiled roofs and beautiful white facades. And from the terrace here, you get a fantastic view of the river and this new bridge in the distance. Now, in front of us here, we have a chapel, and I'm hoping that we're going to be able to find some coverage from inside. Yes, we can, because this is an extremely gorgeous interior. An absolute cornucopia of fantastic tile work on the walls here, on the ceiling. We'll turn that round so that we've got the crest of Portugal the right way around to get the full effect of it. And here we have the organ. Pipes are housed up here. I'm not sure quite where the console of the organ is. Perhaps it's up on the balcony here, but just unbelievable. The detail here. The Baroque decoration, the shell motifs, the curlicues. And indeed some of the pipes even fanning out in these trumpet shapes. It's not a huge space, so to hear the organ playing must really be quite something. It must absolutely fill the room. And a fabulous altar here. And if I take us back out to the square now, we've got it on a beautiful sunny day again. We can start to see it without the scaffold. And this is indeed a functioning university. So when I visited with my wife in October, there were students walking around in their long black gowns, looking, to be honest, like what I think people imagine Oxford and Cambridge students might look like. And this being a working university, it of course has a library, which is this building here. Now, it is open to the public, but only by appointment on a rather strict timetable, and they do not allow you to take photographs in there. But fortunately for us, there is some coverage on Google. So we've just come in through this door, and get ready for this. This is truly like something out of Harry Potter, out of Hogwarts. An astonishingly ornate library. Like something out of a fantasy novel. And take a look at that, the ladder climbing up to the higher shelves to pull out some ancient tome of forbidden wisdom. This isn't usually the sort of thing that we do on Street Aesthetes. Generally, we don't look at interiors. But I think in this case, we've simply got to spend a bit of time marvelling at this. Isn't that incredible, the perspective here? Drawing the eye up towards the heavenly heights. This really is the sort of place that you could spend hours in, not even reading, but simply marvelling at the architecture. But unfortunately, on your tour, you're generally only allowed to be in here for about 10 minutes, and then they quite quickly usher you out. So at least we've got this street view coverage here to enjoy. And I'm going to take us back out to the square for one more look. Really striking. And we're now coming back out into the newer part of the university. We can see the old part back there behind us. We're now going to start heading to the other side of the town, back down the hill. And we're going to walk past this aqueduct here, which I believe was built on top of what remained of the Roman aqueduct. And you can see that you've got the way into the more formal part of the botanical garden there. And in fact, we can probably go inside. Yes, we can. There is a wonderful greenhouse here. And the fantastic variety of botanical delights that you might expect from a garden. But this is the Street Aesthete channel, not the Botanic Delights channel, so we're going to continue down the street, enjoying what we're really here for, which is the stunning facades of the edifices on the street. And it really is a delight. I think this would have been an amazing place to go to university. It's the sort of city that it's just about big enough that there are plenty of different areas and neighbourhoods to explore, but also small enough that you can really get to know parts of it and carve out your little niche. Work out your favourite bars, your favourite spots to enjoy the sun. And it would certainly keep you healthy, having to get up the hill to the university every day. And we emerge here at a Praça República, the place of the Republic. Yeah, there's a Pizza Hut here. This certainly is a student town. And I wonder if we can get into the gardens here. But again, we've got more of the tiled roofing, the different coloured tiles that we saw on the university. And just take a look at this archway. I like the way that there's this living rock built into the top of the arch, and there's even a little bit of plant life growing out of it. And we can approach this monument here, or perhaps it's a fountain. And it's really interesting how this mossy plant life has been allowed to grow on here. And it actually seems to be a bit of a fountain with the water spilling down. Very pretty. And again, this whole little park here, definitely worth exploring. We won't be taking it in today because we want to focus on the streets, but just another example of the many different sorts of places that Coimbra has to offer. And we're going to start heading back down the hill. And we've got down the middle of this very wide two-part street, this beautiful pedestrianised avenue flanked on either side by the plane trees, which have this fantastic mottled bark on their trunks, which I just find so attractive. And indeed, the eye is drawn up many of the side streets. And on this occasion, we are going to allow our eye to lead us, I think, and take a quick look up this street. Because if I recall, there is an interesting residential road up here that's worth taking a look at. I'm noticing this modern construction here. Now, not by any means as beautiful as many of the other buildings that we've seen, but there is a certain appeal to it, and it's sort of got some of the cues picked up from the tiling that we see on the facades here, so I'm willing to give it a pass on this occasion. But this is what we're really here for. The stylised crenellations on top, taking a cue from the Sé Velha, the old cathedral that we saw up on the other side of the hill. And it's just a great time of day to catch these buildings with the sun glinting off of them. Just glorious. Coimbra, it's the sort of place that even the residential back streets have lots of great architecture to enjoy. And we're going to continue heading down the hill here. the semicircular motif here, reminding us of the Baroque shell idea that we've seen elsewhere, but with a kind of organic shape inside. And we'll pop over to the other side. Take a look at some of the buildings here. And we come to what I remember being some real favourites of mine, which were these ones here. And we don't quite get the effect of it from this point on the street, but I think if we are perhaps on the other side a bit further back, we now get to see how, if you stand at the right spot, you can start to see the buildings from the layer behind heading up the hill. And you get this, again, this great sense of coziness, of enclosure in the town. What a fabulous building. This brilliant Art Deco style window here with the rounded shapes. Not all of the buildings here are as beautiful as the more remarkable ones that we've seen, but you can't have it all. And as you do sometimes see in Portugal, some of them are in a bit of a state of disrepair. This one certainly looks like the plaster is peeling off. It could do with a lick of paint. But you can tell that with just a little bit of restoration, it would be something worth looking at. Coverage is just a little bit overexposed here in the sunlight, but perhaps we can get a better sense of the building here. Just gorgeous, the tiling around the clock face here. And again, very inviting streets leading you up the hill over here, flanked by more of these very pretty buildings. Now, if we were to keep heading down this road here, we would come eventually back to the mango garden where we started, but that isn't the way we're going to be going on this occasion. I'm going to take you on one last little detour before we come full circle, because I want to show you the view from here. Now, many of these are newer buildings, perhaps the flats in the newer part of town where it's a bit more affordable for the students to live. But the visual impact of the scene really is quite stunning, I think. The thing that gives it its cohesion is the terracotta tiled roofs that we see everywhere, and the generally pale colour of the facades. We jump down to this area here, where we can see, although it's very overexposed, we can see the top of the Oriental fantasy construction in the mango garden. And at last, we'll make our way down this alley to emerge in a familiar spot from the first episode of our exploration. We come out just here at the square by the monastery, thereby coming full circle on our journey through Coimbra. Now, there are quite a few narrow alleys going off in all directions over there that are really great to explore, but the coverage is a little bit disconnected down there, so we won't be exploring there. But the place I want to leave you with is actually over on the other side of the river, It is this sort of theme park, I suppose, Portugal dos Pequenitos, Little Portugal. And it's a place that seemed almost to have been made for the Street Aesthete channel. It is a collection of miniature versions of buildings from throughout Portugal. Now, this is a place that you have to pay to get into, so the coverage in here is going to be limited. But just to give you a sense of what you've got on show here. Now look, I'm not extremely familiar with Portugal and all of its famous buildings, so I can't tell you exactly what these are, but I can tell you that this is a pretty amazing place to walk around. Among the many scale models of Portugal's most beautiful and distinguished edifices. It is very much child-friendly. There are lots of little doorways and places for the kids to run around in. But for someone like me with a real interest in architecture, and indeed probably you, since you've made it this far, watching a Street Aesthete video, this really is somewhere worth taking a look around. And I think we'll end just here. You may recognise the building just here, which is the University of Coimbra in miniature. And thus we conclude our journey. Tourists visiting Portugal will of course go to the capital, Lisbon, and they'll also visit Porto in the north, but I think that they'll often overlook Coimbra, and I think that's a big mistake. It is a beautiful, charming, and compact little city with many hidden gems to discover. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video with me. Since you've made it this far, why not subscribe for more street view explorations of noteworthy locations? If you've enjoyed the music that you hear in this video, then take a look at my first channel, which is where I upload all of my original music.